Look, there's been a lot of anticipation about Meghan Markle's new show. All we knew was that it's going to be a lifestyle show, but we didn't have any details. That show is finally out, and the reviews are, let's say, intense. The group chat's here. They have thoughts. Let's go. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Well, today's the day. Today's the day that we finally get to find out what all the fuss is about.
Let's go. I've always loved taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it. Surprising people with moments that let them know I was really thinking of them.
I mean, look, there was a lot of waiting for this show, and then the show was announced. I was like, okay, we're going to get the show. And then because of the wildfires, the release of the show was delayed, but it's now finally out. Meghan Markle's new show is called With Love, Meghan. It is out today, and with just about literally everything else that she does, it is polarizing. Some people love it. I've seen some really harsh reviews, critics who say that this is just basically like a pampered celebrity's attempt at a rebrand, an attempt at cash in. Once the trailer came out, I remember like fans kind of called out Meghan for copying Pamela Anderson's new show. So there were some similarities there as well. They pointed out that, the trailers are similar, the concepts are similar, the titles are similar. And then there's also this other story, right? There's the Vanity Fair cover story, which left a lot of readers with the impression that Meghan Markle is a bully, that she's someone who's really difficult to work for. Lainey Lui is quoted at length in that article. She's back with us, along with our regular royal watcher, Ellie Hall. Lainey, Ellie, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello. It's nice to have both of you. Ellie, I'm going to start with you on this one because you've had a chance to watch the first few episodes. Tell me about your impression of the show.
It's very Pinterest.
Okay. All right.
It
derogatory
really,
or complimentary?
Neutral.
Okay.
Lots of things that Meghan loves and lots of people that she loves. The show shines when she is the student and not the teacher. And that's something that a lot of reviews have mentioned. When she has famous chefs come in and cook with her and she's learning from them and all these new cooking techniques and stuff, that's really wonderful. When it's just her hanging out with her friends, it can be a little bit hit or miss. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit in just a moment. But Lainey, I know, first of all, Lainey, you just landed from returning back from LA from covering the Oscars. You literally landed 4 hours ago, and you're like, I have every moment to collect my thoughts. I'm ready with a very fully developed take. But tell me about your impression of the show so far.
So I have to say that I am not a lifestyle programming watcher.
Yeah.
So I am coming at this I'm watching this because I need to report on Meghan Markle. So my first impressions are, it's very pretty. It's exactly as I expected from a lifestyle show where a celebrity teaches me what good taste is. And this essentially is how these shows operate, right? I know what good taste is. I know how to entertain somebody. I know what shade of beige is best suited as a linen on your table. And therefore, I learned that. I will say this, for all the people who are criticizing Meghan Markle about how she's either copying or not original, I see the lifestyle stream as full of tropes, just like storytelling is full of tropes. I, for example, am a romance fan. I love K-dramas and Chinese dramas. And there's always tropes, right? There's the friends to lovers trope. There's the enemies to lovers trope. We accept those tropes in romantic storytelling or different tropes in horror storytelling or whatever. So why wouldn't we accept tropes in lifestyle, given that lifestyle is so explosively popular? Sorry, but like there's only 2 ways or whatever, maybe 5 ways to do a chicken. Like I think that is, to me, what my answer would be to those criticizing Meghan Markle for not being original. We're talking about linen and tablecloths. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. I would say, first of all, Martha Stewart would say there's at least a dozen ways to do a chicken. That's
well, but like, first of all, it's chicken, so it can't be. It's never going to be good, in my opinion.
Okay.
Hang on. I want to actually like give people a taste of the criticism because it's one thing for it to be tropes, but if you're lucky enough to like never visit the corner of the internet that only like thrives on Meghan Markle criticisms, I just want you guys to hear this.
Now, obviously, as we all know, with Love Meghan, it quickly turned into the most disliked and downvoted trailer in Netflix history. And there were, of course, lots of comparisons to do with who she's ripped off now. The little princess of plagiarism. She is a mimic. She doesn't have a personality of her own, so she morphs into other people. But when it comes to Pammy, a few people posted, Pamela's cooking show is cooking with love. And then with Love Meghan. And you're like, okay, yep, definitely could see the similarities. Even Meghan with this photograph of her posing in the kitchen stirring an empty pot and Pammy looking rather gorgeous and just being her authentic self.
Okay, I mean, I take the point that that Lainey was making, but the idea that there's only so many tropes, there's only so many ways you can pose in a kitchen, only so many titles you can give your lifestyle show, and there's bound to be some sort of overlaps. But that is one of like many YouTubers who are basically going in on Meghan Markle criticism, saying it's just too similar to Pamela Anderson and what she's trying to do. What do you make of that criticism of like, actually, we could have done a little bit more to distinguish this from what Pamela Anderson put out?
Well, I'm going to reveal myself as someone who reads Lainey, because this is a throwback. But when Meghan guest edited Vogue, I think about this all the time. You wrote something that said that it's so hard to talk about rational criticism of Meghan because it gets drowned out by all of the irrationality and by the racism and just. When you do want to criticize Meghan, I think it was in the context of like her editor's note in what you wrote, but it's hard to be rational because you have people like these YouTubers who have an industry, who make money only criticizing Meghan Markle and only attacking her, and that's what gets them the views. So that's the point. I think we all just need to begin there when it comes to the criticism of this show, that there is so much out there. There is so much hatred that people from the very beginning were and are looking for reasons to hate this show. People were going to go looking for things to compare it to. And I think Pamela Anderson's show just happened to be there. And I'm not a lifestyle show viewer either. They all kind of look alike to me. You know, the Barefoot Contessa, I was getting a lot of Barefoot Contessa vibes from Meghan's show. There's only so many ways that you can do a show about cooking and hosting and, you know, gardening, in my opinion. You're going to see some of the same shots, especially if, you know, the director worked with Anthony Bourdain on his show for years. You know, it's that kind of vibe. But really, with all the criticism, the Pamela Anderson criticism, you really need to understand that the loudest voices here are people who have made an industry out of hating Meghan. And you need to accept these YouTubers, these people on Twitter, all of this crazy, mad criticism. You need to look at it in that context.
Okay, I take your point, which I suppose is Lainey's point. Seriously, so this is a bit of an attribution circle happening here. Let me attribute Ellie's point, which is Lainey's original point, that the criticisms of Meghan Markle are landing within a context and landing within a history of like really vicious racism. That's sort of where they originated. And so under all this context, Lainey, when we sort of watch a show like this one, what are the avenues of criticism that are available to us that don't feel like they're a retreading of that racism and that sort of like really vile stuff that sort of first came out that made them leave the royal family in the first place? I mean, how do you begin anew and sort of carve out a new trail of saying, on this, I'm not with you?
Well, and that's what Ellie was saying in terms of, I think that it is fair to criticize Meghan and Harry too, based on their work, right? I think what Ellie was referring to is when Meghan Markle guest edited British Vogue, and she, like, you know, wrote an editor's letter. And I think what I think I criticized was her writing. You know, if you're going to write an editorial letter, I think it's fair for me to criticize.
Engage with the writing.
with the writing and what she was trying to say. I didn't care for her writing. I thought it was too flowery, and she did that whole thing where it was like too much alliteration, like 5 words in a row starting with P, you know, and
Yeah.
and so to me, that's a fair criticism, is criticizing her writing. So to go back to your question, when is it fair? I mean, it's always going to get lumped in with the unfairness, but I do think it would be fair to criticize this TV show the way I criticized Harry's show Polo.
Right.
Lacked narrative. I don't think it was well produced. I don't think they understood and really were able to draw out the characters that were more interesting than others. It lacked tension and there were no stakes. So
that's a bad TV show. Like, you say all those things.
That's not a great TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the context of where you situate Polo, which is sports docuseries, in comparison to other sports docuseries in that format, I don't think it came up to standard. So if we're criticizing Meghan's show, then you have to consider it in the context of its library, which is Barefoot Contessa, Martha Stewart, Pamela Anderson, and is it well produced? You know, are the recipes and the ideas being presented in a way that's fresh? Is there chemistry between the players? So as Ellie mentioned, Meghan seems to do better when she's with experts. There's chemistry there because she's presenting herself as a novice, or at least someone who's learning. The chemistry with her friends, if it's not landing for whatever reason with the audience, it must mean that there's something to the way it's filmed, how these friendships are being performed that doesn't quite capture the viewer's expectation, interest, whatever. I think those are things that are fair to criticize.
Right.
However, all of that criticism ends up getting into the bigger pot of hate against Meghan. And so it's hard to separate what's true and valid and legitimate criticism.
Ellie, if we sort of expand that point further, I do think like this is also working against some of the history of what Meghan Markle has given us to work with here, which is the idea that, you know, moving from the UK to California for more privacy, and then sort of being able to sort of control the avenues with which you make yourself become available. And I think like one of the things that they did when they moved out of the UK to the US is try to adopt, you know, more American modes of celebrity, if you will. One of those modes of celebrity is striking a $100 million Netflix partnership 5 years ago. That meant, you know, they're going to produce a whole bunch of different shows. This show is under that large partnership. But this isn't just the launch of a new show, right? Like there is a new dimension to that partnership. So you can watch Meghan making jam, and then you can also buy the jam or the plates or the apron. For Meghan, it kind of feels like more complicated. Like it's a bit more about her reputation and her identity than it is about the stuff that she's trying to sell. What needs to happen, you think, for a show like this to even count as a win for Meghan Markle? Because other celebrities can say, well, people watched it, and so therefore that's a success. This is a little bit different. I think like there's a bit more reputationally going on here.
I think that, it goes back to the quality, the products that she's selling, and this is her brand as ever, and it took a little while to get there. It changed names, there have been trademark issues, but it looks like pretty soon these products are going to launch, and Netflix is partnering with her. And this is the first time Netflix has done a sort of brick and mortar partnership with anything to sell products. So I think how popular these products are, how much they sell, how good they are when people unpack them, you know, are for YouTube videos or for TikToks, are they going to be impressed? It's got to be a good product because, like you said, people are going to watch this show.
Yeah.
People are going to love
It's going to be number one on
People
Netflix for like a few days. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So moving forward, it needs to be, okay, the show is this. What is Meghan the brand? Because this is really what it is. This is the launch of Meghan the brand. And we always thought there was going to be something like this coming out of the Netflix deal. It took a little longer than everybody thought, but Meghan's back on Instagram. She's launching this brand. So this is her really starting her post-royal life in a huge way. And it's got to be a success.
Lainey, I got about a minute left here. Do you imagine someone's going to hear this and think, you know what, it kind of strikes me as a paradox for you to say you want privacy and then to spend a bit of time and then launch yourself as a brand? Do you see that as a paradox, or is it actually like there's no contradiction there for you?
For me, there's no contradiction because Meghan and Meghan and Harry now are celebrities, and this is the dilemma for celebrities and has been for the celebrities, is how they are able to manage their private life with their public life. And we hear celebrities say this all the time. I want you to engage with my work when I'm on a red carpet, when I'm at a movie premiere, when I'm on Instagram and you're leaving me comments, it's one thing. But, if I'm out and with my kids at the playground, maybe don't come and start filming me. I mean, it's
Right.
So I think that is what I would like to see Harry and Meghan both acknowledge a little bit more, the fact that, you're making TV shows now. You're on camera now. So essentially, you and housewives
You're in
have more
conversation with that.
common.
Yeah.
Have more in common than you think. And so, there are certain rules of engagement with celebrity that now apply to the Sussexes.
Having said all of that, I did have to pause my Netflix for just like 5 minutes when inside of the first 2 minutes of the show, Meghan said, while she's doing her little beekeeping, she said, good vibes make for good hives. And I was like, I can't do this right now. I don't have the brain space or the energy to engage in a sentence like good vibes make for good hives. Maybe I'll come back to this later. Ellie and Lainey, I appreciate your time. This has been good vibes and good hives. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Lainey Lui is an Etalk senior correspondent and the founder of LaineyGossip.com. She's in Toronto. Ellie Hall is a freelance reporter who covers the Royals. She's in Washington, D.C. With Love, Meghan is streaming now on Netflix. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Okay, we're going to switch gears now and talk about the film that totally cleaned up at the Oscars. Anora won 5 awards, including Best Picture. But what you might not know is Toronto writer and performer and producer Andrea Werhun was directly involved with the movie. It was her memoir, Modern Horror, that helped shape Sean Baker's script for Anora. Andrea was a chief consultant on the movie, and Andrea's been on the show before, talking about how Hollywood often gets sex work wrong. This is the opposite story for once. Andrea, good to see you, friend.
Oh, good to see you too.
Look, I've been kind of walking around being like, Andrea won Best Picture. Forget Sean Baker. But I don't know. Maybe that's not how you feel. How are you feeling after Anora's big win?
I feel so proud. I feel so excited. A really incredible film about sex work, or that touches on sex work, however you want to put it.
Mm-hmm.
It really, it won. And it's really exciting to see the enthusiasm people feel for this film.
Yeah, and he just kept winning award after award after award. I want to play you a part of Mikey Madison's speech after Mikey won the Oscar for Best Actress for Anora. Have a listen.
Thank you to our incredible consultants. I also just want to again recognize and honor the sex worker community. I will continue to support and be an ally. All of the incredible people, the women that I've had the privilege of meeting from that community has been one of the highlights of this entire incredible experience.
Mikey's talking about the debt that she owes the sex worker community for the win and for helping her tell the story. Andrea, she's talking about you, my dude. She's talking about you and other sex workers who consulted on this movie. What did consulting on Anora even entail?
Yeah, so it started with Sean Baker reaching out to me via Instagram. He slid into my DMs.
Love to see it.
He told me he'd read my book and was wondering if I did any consulting because he basically, quote, I'm making another film about sex work.
Mm-hmm.
So we started working together and we went back and forth on the script many times, starting from when it was like basically kind of a notes document up until it was like more refined. And my job was to flag any forms of representation that did not feel real to the sex work experience. And so then working with Mikey, I was able to connect with her before she started shooting and just sort of help her tap into her own qualities as a human being that I think that a lot of sex workers share, which is like our strength and our resilience and our charisma, our warmth, our determination to finish a shift. And I think most of all, our sense of humor, because I think being funny is a really important mode of survival for sex workers.
I think it's really worth noting that, you know, Anora is an indie film in every way. Like, Sean Baker is very much an outsider, someone who consistently works outside the big studio system. You know, you're also in Sookie Lee's movie, Paying for It, which is an adaptation of Tessa Brown's graphic novel, and sex work is also very much at the center of that. I think it's interesting that independent directors have so much more freedom to explore and play around with sex work than big studios do. What do you think that tells us about the place of sex work in the culture right now?
I mean, I think sex work has been a common theme for all movies, probably for all time. I think, like, I'm not sure there is a difference between mainstream and indie filmmaking and the prevalence of sex work as a theme or as a plot point or as a plot device. I think that, you know, sex work is a popular subject. And audiences, I think more than ever, are craving authentic representation. Like, I think we're just like so culturally aware that there are stories told about sex workers when sex workers don't have a seat at the table when it comes to these representations. And people are just like, I think part of what makes Anora so exciting and great for people is the fact that they know that sex workers consulted on this film, and that lends itself to an authenticity. But I think indie film needs to go further. It's not enough to have a consultant on a film because we don't have any decision-making power. What we need is sex worker writers and directors and producers and editors and sound designers and people who actually have a say in the way that sex work is depicted on film.
And we should say that, like, right before Sean Baker won a boatload of Oscars, you know, you guys were working together because he's executive producing the adaptation of your book, Modern Horror. That's a documentary sort of feature film hybrid. You're in it. You're the producer. You're the star. You're the writer of all of it. How did it go in terms of, like, what did Sean Baker bring in terms of bringing Hollywood to you as you sort of work through adapting your own work?
It's so exciting to have the champion of indie film working with us on this extraordinarily Canadian indie production, and the way that he uses his clout to support this authentically sex worker driven endeavor is really, really exciting. We've been working on Modern Horror for 5 years. This is Nicole Bazine, my longtime collaborator, director, photographer. She is, her and I, we've been working on this for minimum 5 years. We brought on producer Lauren Grant. And, you know, once I finished working with Sean on consulting, you know, Nicole and I asked, and we received the EP role from Sean, and he's been incredible as a creative EP, where he has, like, reviewed our scripts and our various cuts, and his input has been incredible.
I just want to play real quickly a bit of one of Sean Baker's speeches from last night.
I want to thank the sex worker community. They have shared their stories. They have shared their life experience with me over the years. My deepest respect. Thank you. I share this with you. Okay.
Look, Sean Baker's been working for a long time. He's made 8 movies over a 25-year career. But when it comes to focusing his movies on sex work, it feels like a recurring theme. Like, he's not a tourist in this space. How do you think Hollywood gets a little bit better at telling these stories? Also, I have like 45 seconds left. Sorry, pal.
No worries. I mean, I think Sean Baker's, you know, he's a director who's not a tourist because he hires sex workers to check his work. And that's really important. But as far as Hollywood getting it right, it's so much more common for Hollywood to get it wrong. In fact, it's incredibly rare for Hollywood to get it right. And that's because, you know, none of these filmmakers have the lived experience required to make it a genuinely authentic representation. And so we need to push harder to have sex workers be in these positions where we are making decisions on these films. We are making films about our own lived experience. And at the end of the day, there's representation and then there's rights. There's stigma, there's the law. And we need full decriminalization of sex work. We need labor rights, and we need to defeat stigma if we want to see more authentic sex worker stories out there, because the risks remain so high when it comes to us telling our own stories.
It's not lost on me that Anora won just one day before International Sex Workers' Rights Day. Andrea, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, friend.
Thank you so much, Elamin.
Yes, of course. My name is Elamin. This show is called Commotion. Hey, we'll see you again tomorrow.